I found an insane build that lets you deal massive damage against bosses in God of War Ragnarok. There's two versions of it, and one of them can take a dragon from pretty much full health to zero in only a couple of seconds. There are a lot of different items that go into this, so we'll cover everything you need to get and know right here. This video does contain spoilers for some of the early parts, so if you haven't played the Vanaheim arc yet, which is about 7 to 8 hours into the game, do that first and then come back later. And if you've been enjoying God of War Ragnarok and the content on the channel so far, then leaving a like would really help us out. Subscribe for way more videos like this one, and let's go. So the main components of this build are the gear you get from following the Beserker questline. We've made a video going over where to find these, how to beat them, and what gear they drop, which I'll link to at the end of this one. But one part of the reward I didn't discuss in detail in that video are the amazing weapon attachments you get for the Leviathan Axe and the Blades of Chaos. Because both the grip and the pommels of the 9 realms have a really powerful effect that makes the rest of the Beserker gear better too. The perk works the same on each of the items, but it requires you to unlock some specific skills. Glacial Permafrost for the Leviathan Axe and Furious Immolation for the Blades of Chaos. With these skills you can consume the charge you build up on your weapon by dealing damage without getting hit. You can see when you can activate it on the bottom left of the screen, where the L1 plus triangle button prompt appears if you can consume the charge, which will then give you a short buff depending on the weapon you're using. The blades apply burning explosions and generate more rage with the buff active, where the axe triggers these frost waves on each attack after consuming a full permafrost charge. But if you perform this move with one of the Beserker attachments equipped, you will actually trigger a realm shift too, which, in case you don't know, is a short window of slow motion where you can easily attack enemies without them hitting you back. Now the realm shift buff from these attachments doesn't last long, less than 2 seconds, but you have about enough time to get a combo going if you're next to an enemy, and keep in mind that there is pretty much no cooldown on this at all. After the consumed buff runs out, you can immediately start building up your permafrost or immolation charge again, then consume it to trigger a new realm shift pretty much until there are no enemies left. And if you've been making your way through the story, you might already have access to the Hilt of Hofud relic, which allows you to trigger an even longer realm shift. No spoilers of course, if you haven't gotten it yet, it's an unmissable reward from a boss pretty late into the game, and that same boss also drops the Emblem of the 9 Realms enchantment for your amulet, which makes you deal more damage during realm shifts as well. So then you can start a fight by triggering the Hilt of Hofud to slow down time for a full 6 seconds if you've upgraded it to max level, hit an enemy during that window to build a permafrost or immolation, and then consume the full charge after the first realm shift has ended to immediately follow up with a shorter one. You will deal extra damage during both shifts if you have the Emblem of the 9 Realms equipped, and if you want, there's an item that lets you trigger even more realm shifts. You get this one from a side quest in Vanaheim. You have to follow the Scent of Survival quest first to reach the plains area, and then as soon as you enter that, you will get a new quest called For Vanaheim. Just follow that one through, not going to spoil anything, but there is a pretty fun boss at the end, and then after completing it, you get the Rund of the 9 Realms, which now also gives you a chance to trigger a realm shift on a parry. So we have a ton of nice gear to give us some great damage windows and a nice boost to our attacks thanks to that enchantment, but we want to buff up our damage even more. And the best way to do this is by also equipping the Beserker armor set, which gives you a massive boost to your melee attack damage after using a relic. Again, we discussed how to get this in that previous Beserker video that you'll find at the end of this one. Technically, you only need the chest piece for the extra damage to trigger, but since the wrist and waist piece both give you ways of restoring your relic cooldown, I highly recommend equipping those too. Because the more you use the relic, the more you get the benefit from this 15-second damage increase. There is of course a downside to this, and that is the fact that you yourself will also take increased damage with this Soulless Warrior buff active. Especially on higher difficulties, this means that a single attack can take a very large chunk of your health, so you really want to watch out. But this is where all those realm shifts come into play, as during these it is much harder for enemies to hit you while you can easily deal some damage. By starting off with the Hilt of Hofud, you get a very long window of slow time, which will also trigger the Soulless Warrior perk from the Beserker chest piece, giving you tons of extra damage, even more with the Emblem of the 9 Realms also equipped, and as soon as the first shift ends, you will have a lot of immolation or permafrost built up so you can trigger a second one. If you're quick enough, this second realm shift will also still benefit from the massive buff to melee damage you get from the armor set, as that one lasts for a full 15 seconds. You'll still have to be careful during the second half of the duration, but at the very least you can deal a lot of damage with the benefits of the Beserker chest piece without having to worry about being hit. So that's already great damage, but we can do even better if we take a look at another enchantment for your amulet, the Boon of Valor. This is a buff for the Valor Spartan Rage ability you unlock just before your first visit to Vanaheim, but the boss that drops the enchantment can actually only be reached on your second visit to this realm. It's an optional side boss that spawns over here on the map, and with it equipped you will lessen the initial healing of the Valor Rage ability, but you gain a powerful buff of strength and lifesteal for a duration of about 10 seconds. Which means that you can rage, then trigger the Hilt of Hofud relic with the Beserker armor and the emblem of the 9 realms slotted in the amulet to have 3 different damage buffs stack on top of each other. And the results kinda speak for themselves here, just look at the health disappear. And you of course get lifesteal as well, so if you do get hit while you still have the Soulless Warrior buff active, it'll be much easier to recover from that too. But there is actually a way to increase your damage even more, although the downside here is that it requires you to switch out the Hilt of Hofud for something else, so that 6-second window of safety after activating your relic is now gone. But what this Talisman of Main gives you in return is, well, even more damage. For if you don't remember, you get this one very early in the story as your first relic, so it's unmissable, and at max level it grants a melee damage boost of 11 seconds. Which, with the Beserker armor equipped, will also trigger the damage buff from that armor, and then you can still trigger the Valor Rage with the Boon of Valor enchantment to get a third damage boost going at the same time. When rocking this variant of the build, I still use the Realm Shift grip and pommel from the Berserkers, but instead of using the slow motion window to attack, I use it to activate my other buffs, so the Relic and the Rage, and then you can let loose with an empowered weapon 3 different buffs for your melee damage and lifesteal on top to boot. Regardless of which version of the build you are using, I also recommend that you take a look at your skill mods to make certain aspects even better. We've explained in an earlier video how to easily grind these, we'll link to that one in the video description, but the main thing you want to be looking for are momentum and damage mods. Momentum builds up more weapon charge on certain attacks, so again that's the permafrost on the axe and the immolation on the blades, which will help you trigger the grip and pommels of the 9 realms more often. Damage of course doesn't really need an explanation, but I recommend looking for a powerful move with a damage mod that you can use while all your buffs are active for max damage. The Leviathan axe has a great pick for this, as both the Pride of the Frost heavy finisher and the upgraded version of that allow you to slot a damage mod, giving you 3 heavy damage slams that are relatively easy to pull off. And if there are any other high damage moves I missed, let me know in the comments. And to wrap things up with a nice final damage boost, I equipped 3 Niflheim runes to activate the set bonus, which also gives me more melee damage based on my defense when my health is above 75%. Subscribe for way more God of War Ragnarok videos, we got a ton more builds and cool items coming your way, and of course leave a like if you enjoyed this one. If you want, you can watch a previous video on how to defeat all the Berserkers in the game to get an amazing relic and armor set. I will see you in the next one, goodbye.